we're on the doorstep of something historic. A rivalry taking its final laps around the track. A rivalry ingrained deep in the core of Oklahomans. This is Bedlam. This year, the Oklahoma State Cowboys have looked like a contender. Belief in the Pokes has grown throughout the season. For the Oklahoma Sooners, a late season loss has hurt their chances. Can a win over OSU catapult them back into the conversation once again? Or could this be the third time Gundy and the Cowboys stop the Sooners? A historically good Cowboys defense versus a high-powered Sooner offense. Both teams need this win today. Who will reign supreme in the state of Oklahoma? Who will claim bragging rights among the Okies? Orange Power or Boomer Sooner? You take your pick. No matter who wins it, one thing is guaranteed. It's going to be Bedlam. It's the Oklahoma Sooners and the Oklahoma State Cowboys. From Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater, Oklahoma, this is GameDay U.
Welcome to GameDay U. I'm Will Blessing, joined by Shannon Earhart and Ben Thomas. Now we are here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, in the shadow of Boone Pickens Stadium, ready for Sooners, Cowboys. It's Bedlam time. Now, before we get into our takes about the game, let's hear from Coach Lincoln Riley about how he's prepared for Bedlam.
Another episode of Bedlam, and as it's become here in a lot of the years that I know that I've been here, it's a game with a lot of important things riding on it. So that's what makes it more fun. There's no question about it. These rivalry games are always great, but when you got two good football teams that are going at it with a lot at stake, makes it even better. So
now, before we get into Bedlam, Sooners beat the Iowa State Cyclones 28-21 last weekend. Let's talk a little bit about some of our takeaways from that game. Shannon, what's your takeaway?
Well, Will, Ben, the thing is that the offense struggled. They had no pass game. Through the air, they were absolutely terrible, probably the worst that I've seen in a long time. They had combined 229 yards, 17 of 36 for passing, 1 TD, and 3 interceptions. You guys, that's through 2 games. The running game was the only plus for the offense. They've had 200-plus yards where it's been absent in weeks past, which is phenomenal for them. But after that, it's just not much. Caleb had that 74-yard touchdown, but it was bust. It was a bust. It was a busted play. It was lucky. So I kind of want to recap the end of the game. They carried the ball 5 times for 53 yards and a touchdown. That's great. Like, good for you. Awesome. What wasn't good is that they couldn't run the clock out with 3 minutes left. They were stuffed on 3 straight plays and then had to punt it and trust the defense to handle it. The offense stayed on the field just long enough for the defense to be able to recover and pick up the pieces where it fell apart.
Absolutely, that was definitely it's an interesting transition to go from the offense simply carrying the games to go into the defense.
Yeah, but we've seen that for most early on in the season too. The defense kind of picking up the slack, carrying the team when Rattler was quarterbacking too.
It's been a weird
But I
year.
agree with you. I like the Kennedy Brooks. Got to see a little more action there. I called him out last week, so it's nice to see KB get his touches. But for me, I'm going to the other side of the ball. What we just talked about, the defense came up huge last game against Iowa State with big time turnovers, lots of sacks, which we haven't really seen from the Sooner defense in a long time. They had, I think, 7 last game, and some big hits as well, which I obviously will talk about later, because who doesn't love big hits in football? But again, like Shannon mentioned, that offense did struggle, and maybe the question gets asked, does Rattler maybe step back in? Because Caleb started off hot, but these last few weeks has really struggled, and so maybe that begs the question. But my biggest thing is, what happened to Gabe Burkich though? Since he kicked that burrito,
it's the burrito.
Since he kicked the burrito, he's missed field goals.
He's angered some sort of Tex-Mex god, and he just hasn't been able to kick field goals since then.
Do not kick burritos.
Don't.
That's just how it is. But that's honestly those are my takeaways.
I have to add on though, and the fact that we saw this offense play the way they did against Iowa State. How are they going to show it against OSU, the number 1 defense in the nation?
That is the big question.
Can they do it?
No, it's absolutely going to be a defensive battle. I'm not expecting much from the offense. And again, I'm going to get a little bit more specific from Iowa State. Ben talked a little bit about the defense. I'm going to get more specific. I'm going to talk specifically about the linebackers and the defensive backs, the secondary. This has been something that's been riddled by injuries. Getting some people back has really helped the Sooners. Looking at the linebackers, we got Brian Asamoah all around the field, running everywhere. 8 total tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 sack. He really performed against the Cyclones. Key Lawrence making big plays. That one deflection that allowed for a defensive touchdown, what they call the thick 6. The Jalen Redmond thick 6.
Key Lawrence, man.
Jalen Redmond has been great too. Exactly. He's really stepped up.
He's one of the top guys.
Coming off of injury. The Sooners are getting healthy, and that's allowing for them to play better. DTY, a dude that was taken out with injury, with an interception. The defense just is throwing layups. They're lobbing it to the offense, and the offense just can't finish.
Yeah, they're finally getting stops they need, and the offense is then...
They're getting turnovers.
Usually an OU offense was begging for stops on defense, and now they're finally getting them, and they're not doing anything with it.
Caleb Williams was the guy. Like, he came in for Spencer Rattler during Texas. He can still be the guy, but it's going to be this game against OSU where we put him to the test. He did it against Texas. He's kind of dropped off a little bit since Tech. Wasn't that great, not something great that we've seen. So Caleb Williams needs to prove that he's a guy, that he's a freshman, but like he needs to utilize the perimeter and his running backs like Kennedy Brooks. Maybe we'll see Eric Gray in there too.
That's true. The Sooners establishing the run game, very successful in the midfield, just abandoning it when they get to the red zone. What is the best option for this offense?
I think that they need to utilize the perimeter. There's so many receivers that are so good. Marvin Mims, Jaden Hazelwood. Those guys are going to be key, especially against this OSU defense, who is so good against the run. So good against the run not Spencer Rattler. Caleb Williams maybe it's Spencer, needs to utilize those guys and put those guys in that one-on-one offense.
Yeah. It always starts with the O-line.
It does.
You have to start with the O-line. If you can establish it in the trenches, you can establish a run game. You establish the run game, it opens up the passing game. You open the passing game, the offense is electric. So it all starts with that.
Well,
and that's been the biggest, I guess, problem with this OU team is the fact that that offensive line, usually so dominant, it's just not been there.
Faltered a little bit.
It's not been there.
And that's a lot. Caleb Williams, great player, but he is a kid. He's in his first year.
Younger than all of us.
He's younger than all of us, exactly. And he can play way better football than I can tell you that. But his vision seems to be slipping, and that may be because the offensive line didn't give him enough time with Iowa State, with Baylor. He's missing open receivers just because he's not looking enough, and maybe that's because he doesn't have enough time.
He has tunnel vision, 100%.
He's
and that's also on Lincoln Riley. That's on Lincoln Riley to start figuring it out. Figure it out. Also, the fact that Iowa State forced 4 3-and-outs against the OU offense, which is something. Iowa State's defense isn't all that great. Yes, we have seen progressively it's gotten better. OU has played better defenses throughout the season, but ISU is nothing compared to Oklahoma State's defense, and that's where this game is going to be very interesting to watch.
Absolutely. And another look, the Oklahoma State defense against freshman quarterbacks, they've played a lot recently, especially against Tech, shut out Tech. They're very successful against young guns.
That's Tech.
I mean, yeah,
That's
it's
Tech.
Tech.
I mean,
it's not comparable.
I mean, it's Tech. I would take
6'5".
Caleb Williams as a freshman over any Tech quarterback.
Absolutely. And I'll talk about that. I'll talk about Donovan Smith later.
Talk about that,
and that shutout. But I mean, it's going to be a defensive battle.
Definitely.
100%. And the score is going to be low because of that. I don't think either side's of offense. Spencer Sanders is not that great of a quarterback. I still want to see Shane Illingworth in there. Throw him in there. Give him a chance.
It's not any better.
I don't think it's
not any better.
How do we know?
Because
he
he
played
got
one
rocked
game this
last
season.
year against OU when Spencer Sanders got hurt by
But
getting
that was-
rocked by OU.
But that was last year.
Yeah,
This
they're not
year.
any better this year. That
I don't know,
offense
Jalen
is
Warren?
just as bad.
With Jalen Warren?
OU's defense is great at stopping the run. Jalen Warren is not going to be effective.
They did. They held Breece Hall.
If you can hold
They
Breece Hall,
shut
you can hold
down
Jalen
Breece
Warren.
Hall.
If you could stop Bijan Robinson, you can stop
actually-
Jalen Warren.
I don't think so.
Yes.
I think
Jalen Warren's better than Bijan and Breece Hall?
Well,
no way.
I think he's
No
right up
way.
there with them. That's
Really?
1, 2, and 3.
Kennedy Brooks is better than him. Oh
All right,
my God.
well, we're going to have to see later today.
We are.
We will.
We are going to have to see, and we'll come back to Bedlam. But that's all the time we have for right now. When we come back, change up in the national landscape, many upsets, maybe more to come. Is there a new top team in the country? When we come back.
I am not putting up with this anymore. Putting up with what? I can't talk to people. I am out of here.
One day, this will be your office. You'll track the storms, send out the warning, and save lives. One day, you'll teach here too. You'll tell others just like you why you became a meteorologist. But first, you have to become a student. And you'll do that right here at the National Weather Center.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
Let's go.
you'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Make a plan today.
Welcome back to GameDayU. Now let's take a bit of a step back looking at the national landscape. Upsets happened last weekend, specifically Utah beating Oregon.
gosh.
Now, demolishing
Yeah,
Oregon, absolutely.
demolishing.
Now, what happened with that game? Why did Oregon lose in the way they did, being the number 3 team in the country?
Yeah, exactly. They're the number 3 team in the country. They got way too cocky and way too ahead of themselves. They fell into a trap game. Being that number 3 team, I think, really just went to their head. The Pac-12 hasn't had a rep in 5 years, since 2016, in the college football playoffs. It has not happened, and that's something that Oregon really, I think, thought too hard about. The thing is with them, it's just who Oregon is that they can gain a lot of momentum, but they can't sustain it for no reason at all. They don't have strong competition in the Pac-12, and that's just not what they can do. They won 4 games in a row before losing to Stanford, And then they won 5 games in a row and then dropped this one to Utah. The moment they walked into the Ute Stadium, it was over because last time they played was 2019 in the Pac-12 championship, and they won. They beat Utah. Utah came in with the mindset that they're getting revenge and they're going to upset this number 3 team, and Oregon just fell into a trap game, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you there, but I think everybody doesn't really realize that Utah is that good. They are truly that good of a team. And then in the Pac-12, they're probably the second, if not best team in the Pac-12 with Oregon. Total yards and points allowed per game. Utah's 4th. Oregon is 5th in both those categories. Yards allowed, Utah's 3rd. Oregon is 5th. Rushing, Utah's 2nd. Oregon's 3rd. In sacks, Utah's 1st and Oregon's 3rd. So, I mean, as you can see, Utah matches up extremely well statistically with Oregon.
Yes.
So, to me, I'm not really surprised by this blowout here. I get Oregon's the 3rd-ranked team in the country at the time, but Utah is that good. Utah is ranked. They're a very good team, and they're a very good opponent. And usually, when it comes to the Pac-12 having any chance at the college football playoffs, who's the one that ultimately ruins it? The Pac-12. So it's kind of like,
so true.
But it's just how it is.
So sabotaging.
I didn't obviously nobody really anticipated probably a blowout game, but I don't even know necessarily if it's more of a trap game. I think that's just like that would be like OU playing Texas and OU playing OSU. It's just one of those battles that it's like either team can win.
It's also the Oregon offense struggled to move the ball, and then they couldn't get the Utah defense off the field.
That's very true.
They couldn't.
Yeah.
Very true. And I mean, part of that is because this Oregon team has just been fraught with injuries. I mean, their top guy, projected like number 1 NFL draft pick, Kayvon Thibodeau, he's coming off an injury. You have, tight end DJ Johnson. He's been out since Ohio State. He was a solid scorer for them last year with 3 touchdowns, 113 yards. He's a tight end. He's a big dude. That's a missing chunk of the offense. You have, other people
They got
out.
railed. They got railed by injuries.
And, I mean, you can't really make an excuse for it, but the injuries definitely have not helped the Ducks. But ultimately, this is what Oregon always does. They always blow it at the end of the season.
It's the momentum. It's the fact that they gain a lot of momentum. They can't sustain it. Once it came to the second quarter, they realized they were out of the playoff picture because they were losing by 28-0. It was embarrassing, and it was the fact that once that got in their head, they couldn't regroup and they overthought it, and they blew the game.
The Ducks always blow their chances at the playoff. I remember 2019, they were in a similar situation. They were in contention. It was like, if they win the Pac-12, they can make it in, and then they lost to an unranked Arizona State.
Yeah.
They dropped it. That moved OU in. They always blow their
They
chances.
always blow
But
it.
hey, you got to give props to that Utah team. Like I said, they're a good team. You got to give them props.
Good for the
Going in
Utes.
there against the 3rd-ranked Oregon team, obviously that's probably the best 2 teams in the Pac-12 battling it out. But like, you went in there and you stomped them. They just absolutely steamrolled them. So you got to give them credit
Oregon
for
has had like such high expectations all season long, and then they drop the ball. It's just something that I expected. I feel like all 3 of us expected.
Yeah.
Utah's not a bad team. You touched on that.
But the Pac-12 is the Pac-12. They're the
The
worst
Pac-12
conference.
is also the Pac-12.
It's the worst conference.
People
in
talk
college
about how the Big 12 is like, they're not good. But people forget about the Pac-12 because they're not good.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch a game at 9
Go
p.m.
watch
at night.
basketball. Go watch Arizona play basketball.
Nobody wants to watch Pac-12 football.
No.
Nobody. You got no, not at all.
I'm waiting for USC to come back.
That's
what I'm waiting for.
That's what I'm
waiting
waiting
for.
for. Back. Bring USC back. See what happens with the new coach. All right, let's take another bigger step back.
Okay.
More upsets, like Oregon. Who is the new best team in college football?
I gotta say, the new best team in college football, you guys, Cincinnati. You might say Alabama, you might say Georgia, but it's Cincy.
That's a fun pick.
That is a good pick. I love that.
Thanks. The way that Cincinnati played against SMU has been the Cincinnati team we've been waiting for all season. They absolutely demolished their opponent. They have one of the top passing attacks in the nation, and like SMU did not stand a chance against the Bearcats. They absolutely erased Tanner Mordecai from the equation. I understand that their competition recently has been weak and they haven't showed out, so people have been questioning if they can make it to the playoffs. But wow, did they prove analysts wrong and really step up to the game?
And now they're number 4.
Beating SMU is giving Cincinnati a realistic path to the playoffs. I don't see anything that's standing in their way.
Power 6.
I don't see
the American
Conference.
Also, let me remind you, before this, we all knew that no group of 5 team has ever made it into the CFP discussion, and now the committee is ranking them at 4, which is something that you don't see. It's a bunch of old white dudes talking and always picking either from the Big Ten, Big 12, SEC, they never consider those group of 5 teams. And the secondary for Cincinnati is absolutely elite. They are destroying their opponents. And Oregon's loss to Utah also helped them too.
Absolutely.
Raise new questions.
I think Cincinnati could fall into a trap game against East Carolina. I think it could happen.
I
think it could
don't
happen.
know.
Anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
Chaos
That
reigns
was
supreme
a
in
show-
college football.
That was
Nothing
a
happened.
showcase game for their defense, and they really showed out. And they showed how deep their back end of the field is.
I don't know.
It's true.
Well, yeah, no, that's true.
I'm
That's
always
true.
more
Maybe
impressed
it's
with
a
that
trap game.
Cincinnati offense. Desmond Ritter, Ford, that transfer from Alabama. I mean, like they just got dudes.
Ritter played phenomenal, and he can put himself in such good situations and be so dangerous for defenses, but he's not as consistent as he has been. Like the past 3 games, he hasn't been that consistent, and it's been the defense.
Trap game.
It's been the defense. Who,
I would love to see them get in there and play
Absolutely.
Georgia.
I would too.
Oh, I would
Play
too.
that Georgia defense.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that.
Oh, and
Absolutely.
speaking of Georgia,
Oh,
look at that
wow.
transition. Look at that transition. Honestly, there is no new best team in college football. It's still the Georgia Bulldogs. I know they played Charleston Southern last week, and that maybe you could then say Ohio State's better, but no. Georgia is still the top dogs this year. Their offense isn't that great with Stetson Bennett. I would prefer to see JT Daniels personally, but it's still kind of efficient. But you cannot forget about this defense. 7.5 points per game average. That is unheard of. This stat is completely dominant. They have 4 players with over 40 total tackles, and you cannot forget about Jordan Davis on that D-line, the 6'6", 340-pound monster
Can't forget
that
about
runs
him.
like Nick Bonito and has the size of, I don't even know.
He's a
Like
dog.
that dude is insane. That man is a dog. This team 100% will go undefeated unless they lose to the Tide in the SEC championship game, of course. But
They could do that.
they will be the number 1 ranked team, and they will probably make it to the national championship game, and they will probably win it because they are just that dominant this year. There's no offense. Maybe Bama, maybe Ohio State.
I got
I was
one.
gonna say maybe Ohio
Exactly.
State that can rival this defense because they, no matter who they play, they shut everybody down.
See, you're talking about defense. I want to talk about offense. I want to talk about the explosive Ohio State offense.
Yes, sir.
They
Ohio
are the
State
best team in
defense is
college.
pretty good too.
They are the best team in college football because you look at how they dismantled Michigan State. They are rolling.
It was all
49-0 at half, 56-7. Yeah, a top 10 ranked team.
Yeah, Michigan teams are frauds. I've talked
Michigan
about
State
that.
Michigan
versus
teams are
Ohio
fraud.
State is
Sure. Still a top 10
always
ranked team.
a great matchup though.
Actually,
Always a
can we just
toss-up.
chalk it up to Mel Tucker getting his new contract? That was the reason
Oh
why.
my gosh, that
Maybe.
amount of money.
That was the sole reason why.
But
Jeez.
ultimately, explosive offense. I think they can contend with Georgia. I think a Georgia-Ohio State national championship
You
would
guys,
be pretty
that
sweet.
would be great to see. I also want to throw Cincinnati in there. I honestly just want to
They're
see
gonna get
how
stomped.
They're gonna get
I wish we could
stomped.
just have,
I would-
two games
I would
that just
love
for fun.
a
You know, they
feel-good-
play each other
yeah,
and we see
sure.
how it works out.
Feel good season for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That'd be great. They're not beating Ohio
The
State.
committee's
or
just going to
Georgia.
give them Georgia to shut them up.
Throw 'em a
basically.
bone. Throw 'em a
You're
bone.
in. Now face the best defense in, I think, of all time.
That's
So
what
here
happens
you
to
go.
OU
Have
all the time.
fun.
OU played
Yeah,
LSU, destroying.
Exactly.
Well, that was that
That's-
offense.
Anyway, you couldn't.
was
you could not beat LSU, but that
Yeah, no.
is all the time we have. When we come back, we're
Dang
going to talk about. I know. We're going to talk about heroes and zeros from last week of college football.
I will never forget this day. In this moment, it's as if time itself has stopped for us. The thought of being here with you. When 2 become 1. I will never forget this day. Your opioid addiction affects more than just you. Get help. Visit ok.gov/health.
This is Tehani. She likes to play with her friends and has dreams of becoming a doctor. But when COVID-19 devastated her community, she was taken out of school and forced into marriage at just 12 years old. Tehani and thousands of other child brides are facing domestic abuse, female genital mutilation, and life-threatening pregnancies. And the pandemic is causing these numbers to rise. Too Young to Wed envisions a world where girls are free to simply be children and determine the course of their own lives. Will you help us?
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to GameDayU. Now, there are a lot of players in college football, some good, some bad. Let's talk about the good ones first. Shannon, who's your hero from last week?
Well, it's not a player, Will or Ben.
Well,
It's actually a coach. And he actually coaches here in Stillwater. It's Mike Gundy. I'm calling out Mike Gundy as my hero. It's because he clinched. He clinched the Big 12 championship, which is something he has never done in his entire, however many years he's been here for forever, coaching. He did so well with this offense. They've been blowing people out, and you guys, they lead by a 35.5-point margin of victory over the last 4 weeks. That's the best in the nation. They've improved each week, and that's something I really want to harp on because on both sides of the ball, they've been doing great. They're number 1 in the FBS, and they're number 2 behind Georgia. That's on defense. On offense, they are number 1 in the Big 12 for total offense, number 1 rushing, and number 3 in scoring offense. Yeah, they slammed Tech, but as they should. They were 6-4, now 6-5 on the season. And the biggest thing I want to harp on, though, is the fact that Mike Gundy clinched. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. You did it because OU hasn't, and OU is still in a spot where they might not even be in the Big 12 championship.
Mike Gundy's clinched a Big 12 championship berth before.
He won, not when there was a game. He won in 2011, but there wasn't a game. It was just like kind of like an AP polls type deal. It's like, oh, you won.
Big 12's messed up.
Oh, yeah, now they have a game. Games
But
are good.
top that.
Congratulations to
very
the
easy to
Cowboys.
top that with my hero this week. First of all, can I get a roll tide? My hero this week is quarterback Bryce Young, potential Heisman winner too. He had a monstrous game against Arkansas, and Arkansas's defense, it's SEC. It's not that bad. They've had a lot of good moments this year. But he finished the game 31 of 40, 559 yards, 5 touchdowns with a 236.1 passer rating, one of his best this season. Dotting up that Arkansas defense and just absolutely dominant. He made it look easy out there. He spread the wealth to 9 different players on that offense. And we can't forget about his top targets, Jamison Williams, John Mechie III, who each had over 170 receiving yards. Just an all-around dominating performance from this kid who's been kind of shaky at times, but is continuing to show out, especially for this Alabama team that needs their offense at full cylinders. And if that offense plays like they did against Arkansas, against Georgia, especially against Auburn today in the Iron Bowl, nobody's stopping, especially not Auburn. Georgia probably can shut them down a little bit, but that offense was dominant. Bryce Young was dominant. He's my pick for the Heisman. And that performance right there, that's a Heisman winning performance right there.
Bryce Young cannot argue with you. That is literally a phenomenal pick. He played so well. He played so well.
The SEC championship is going to be a fun game. But
that's the only game I want to watch.
Him and CJ Stroud, I got to see it head to head.
I'm not watching the Big 10 championship. I'm not watching the Big 12 championship. It's the SEC championship.
Absolutely.
All the way.
Now, you picked a Heisman contender. You picked a coach. I'm going to have to pick another Heisman contender in CJ Stroud.
The rival.
I just said that,
The top two guys for that Heisman.
They're going to be in New York in December.
Yes,
it's just them two. Don't pick
so
anyone else. The dude had 6 touchdowns in the first half against Michigan State, which Michigan is overrated. The state of Michigan football is overrated.
Facts.
But they were still a top 10 opponent at that point. Just dismantled them 56-7. He was 33 for 35 with 432 yards. That is just an insane stat line for such a young kid. He was taken out in the third. I think he could have thrown for 10. I think he could have just hung 100 on the Spartans.
Through that Michigan State defense.
Honestly, he could.
He ripped through.
Spreading that wealth too. All three of their top receivers, Olave, Wilson, they all had monstrous games.
That's why I was talking about the Ohio State offense.
It's just
they're powerful.
No, they
I
are
would love to
powerful.
see it.
They're scary.
Maybe, hey, Bryce Young and Ohio.
That's
and
what
then
I just
CJ
said.
Stroud.
I gotta see him go head to head.
Yes,
National
yeah.
championship.
No, 2 versus 3. Give me that CFP playoff game.
Okay,
and that's right
semifinal.
after the Heisman ceremony too. So that would be a matchup I would
There
love
was
to
great
see.
football in December, but let's talk
Yes,
about some
sir.
bad football. Let's talk about some zeros. Who's your zero?
You just talked about Michigan State. Man, Michigan State really stunk it up, you guys. But my zero, I'm sorry, Kenneth Walker. You are out of the Heisman race, and you did that to yourself. You only had 25 yards on 6 carries, and all of that was in the first quarter except 1 yard. Granted, he did get hurt, and he didn't play in the second half, but he got shut down by that Ohio State defense that you were talking about, and that's another hero I got to throw in. Is the Ohio State defense, because the Spartans didn't score until the 4th quarter, and that was with backups, you guys, with backups, yes.
They're good. They're good
He's
at football.
been averaging 132 rushing yards per game, which is phenomenal, but he picked himself up and put himself out of the Heisman race. Yeah, he's up for 2 awards, which is great, but
Not the
this
one
is
that
a
matters.
time where Kenneth Walker really needed to show out and be that backbone for that offense, and he wasn't, and he got hurt, so hopefully he plays this week. They said that he's questionable, so we'll see.
Questionable.
But
I'm going to keep going on the running back train, and OU fans got to see it last week. My zero, Breece Hall from Iowa State, an All-American, a 2-time 1,000-yard rusher. He just clipped it this season as well. He did have a touchdown, but 19 carries for 58 yards, excuse me. The Sooner defense just stepped up. That D-line stepped up and perfectly game planned for Breece Hall. Kind of similar to Bijan Robinson. That defense was able to shut him down as well. And Breece Hall, non-existent in this game. They forced Brock Purdy to win the game, and that's what happened. They clearly didn't win because, Brock Purdy trying to win you the game. You ain't getting it done,
Brock
that's
Purdy
for sure.
running back into the middle and getting clocked.
Exactly. I mean, 6 games this season, he's had over 100 yards rushing and already over 1,000 yards, like I mentioned. And he's been held under 60 yards back-to-back games. Tech and the Sooners. So, I mean, a key guy for this Iowa State team, and, he just wasn't there. He just wasn't there. And you got to give props to that Sooner defense, though. That was huge for that team that week.
What I have to tell you is that both of these guys, Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, how are they going to match up in the NFL if this is how they're playing towards the end of their season?
They probably have better O-lines.
Maybe.
I know. I think both of their
NFL
O-lines
O-lines. NFL O-lines.
Yeah, but behind, they're going to be benched or go in like the 4th, 5th round.
We'll have to find out.
I think they'll be fine.
But that's enough about running backs. I want to talk about a quarterback, specifically Texas Tech's Donovan Smith, because this dude needed to show up against Oklahoma State and just absolutely didn't. It was a 23-0 shutout. He went 9 for 29, 53 yards, no touchdowns. Here's this. He had 10 rushes for negative 15 yards. He averaged negative 1.5 yards per attempt. That's just bad. You can't say anything good about the Tech team last week.
Breece Hall had more yards.
He did. Breece Hall had more yards.
Breece Hall, a running back, had more yards than that
Negative
guy.
yards.
Yeah,
That's
Kenneth Walker.
atrocious. But that is all the time we have for this block. When we come back, it's rivalry week, and we've got our picks. You'll hear them when we come back.
This is you at OU. What will you learn? How will you excel? What path will you lead? Who will you impact? What will you do at OU?
I am not putting up with this anymore. Put up with what? I can't talk to people. I am out of here.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly and put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
I know that football is the greatest team game out there, and I was able to shine because of the efforts of so many others. You know, but to really be looked at and looked up to and thought of in this way is one of the most amazing things for me.
Barry Sanders addresses the crowd of Oklahoma State fans as they unveil his Heisman statue, making him only one of 4 of OSU's notable alum with a statue in their honor. Sanders claims this statue was a team effort, giving credit to so many, including former AD Mike Holder.
I'll start with some of my Oklahoma State family, who I'd like to thank. I know there's a lot of resources and energy and effort that went into this, and so I'll start off by thanking the former AD, Coach Holder. Thank you for your effort in making this happen, Coach.
Barry Sanders' Heisman statue standing immortally in front of Boone Pickens Stadium was presented to the public before the game against TCU. Sanders even had the War Dogs, his offensive line while at OSU, here for the celebration just like he did while accepting his Heisman Award 33 years ago.
This was a group of pretty much fifth-year senior offensive linemen. They blocked for Thurman, they blocked for me. These guys were selfless. They loved to just get off the line and hit people, you know, and they watched my back every second of the day, and I really, really appreciate those guys.
Along with all of those who played a part in Barry Sanders' stellar collegiate career, fans from the Sanders era recount what his performance did for the university and its culture.
It's ups and it's downs, and when Barry Sanders was there, it was definitely up. And the interesting thing too is Mike Gundy was the quarterback when he was there, so that kind of perpetuates, and no pun intended on his contract, perpetuates the culture that we have now.
And the statue comes with good timing for the Pokes, as it is a reminder of OSU's football legacy to both Cowboys and Sooner fans alike as they enter the stadium this weekend for Bedlam. For GameDayU, Maddie D'Addario.
Welcome back to GameDayU. Now a fantastic slate of college football today. It's rivalry week. And first, it used to be called the Civil War. It's not called the Civil War anymore. It's Beavers and Ducks, Oregon State. Who takes it?
It's got to be the Beavers, you guys. They have one of the best rushing attacks in the Pac-12. It's literally insane. The Ducks are already down in the ditch, and the Beavers are going to kick them while they're down. They've been winning by 21 points or more against all the teams in their conference, so got to go Oregon State.
Gotta disagree with you there. It's the Ducks. Come on, it's the Ducks. They were ranked 3rd at one point in college football, and so I think they can pull off the win here. They're at home, and they just got dismantled against Utah. They're going to want to bounce back, so give me the Ducks.
You know, the Beavers do look promising, but I'm going to have to roll with the Ducks as well because they're going to have that comeback energy. They're a little injured, that's true, but Oregon State is not favored on the road, and they're on the road. They're in Austin. They're in Oregon. I think the Ducks are going to take it, even though this is probably the best matchup that this matchup has had in years.
Yeah, it should be a good game.
It'll be a really close game.
It's going to be a good game. Moving on to a different game, let's switch to the Big Ten. Penn State, Michigan State. This one doesn't have a name, I don't think so, but who's winning?
I got to say, go green, go white, Michigan State, you guys. I think that they're going to win this. They're 5-0 at home, and they're not going to lose, especially with a shaky Penn State team. They've looked lost recently, and I think Michigan State is just going to pound them into the ground, especially since Sean Clifford was injured last game. He got injured. He's not 100%, and that's their main guy. They're really going to have to stiffen up in the red zone, though, Michigan State, if they're going to want to win this game. And they have to also rely on their offense because their defense is what's been very shaky, so it's got to be the offense from Michigan State that carries them to the win.
Gotta disagree with you there. I gotta go Penn State in the upset. Yes, it's not easy to win in East Lansing, but guess what? I think they're the favorites.
They are the
Penn
favorite.
State is.
Negative 125.
This Penn State team is not a bad team. All right, this defense is giving up, I think I saw it was like 16.5 points per game. That's pretty good, especially in Big Ten ball. And if Kenneth Walker, who is questionable, does not play, this MSU team doesn't have a chance. Give me the Nittany Lions all the way.
They're a bend don't break team though.
Kenneth
they lost to
Walker-
Ohio State, but they can bounce back.
They got demolished.
Yeah,
by
they
Ohio
got
State.
demolished.
That wasn't just a loss.
Actually, demolished, I don't think it works. Murder.
They have that burned in the back of their brain. They're not gonna.
There
They're
was
not
no
gonna
more
drop
cheating
another
on the
one.
field.
They won't drop another one.
Yeah, we'll see about it, but I came up with a name for this game. I'm going to call it the Money Bowl because both of these coaches just signed ridiculous contracts.
Yeah,
Penn State's coach going to be coaching them until 2031.
Give me James Franklin.
Absurd.
Ridiculous.
Absurd.
And I'm going to have to roll with Penn State.
Oh,
Yes!
come
I'm going to have to roll with
on.
Penn State because
let's go.
Why?
Kenneth Walker is questionable.
That's your
And
point.
also, they're the favor. Yes. Michigan State, yeah, sure, they can bend and not break, but I think they're just falling off the wagon.
They're falling off the wagon.
Ohio State bent them and then
Broke
snapped
them.
No, they didn't. They bounced. Okay.
They
It was
scored
a bad
1 point.
game. It was a
They
bad
scored
game.
7
But
points.
they're the number two.
It'll be a close game.
They're the number 2 team in the
It'll be a
country.
close game. It'll be a good matchup. Let's get
Yes,
to an
it will.
actual rivalry. Let's
Yes.
talk about the Iron Bowl.
Let's talk about
Who's
it.
winning? Who's winning?
Gotta go Alabama, you guys. You can't disagree with me. As Ben likes to say, roll tide. I think that Bryce Young is just way too good for any defense. Honestly, he has all the weapons too with Mechie, and he also has Jamison Williams. And sorry, you guys, but no number of kick six plays will change my mind. I don't care, Carolyn. I'm sorry, but gotta go Alabama.
It's going to become a drinking game at this point. How many times I say this? Roll freaking tide all the way. Give me Bama. Give me Nick Saban. Give me Bryce Young. That offense is too electric. That defense is always top notch. Yeah, they haven't been the best this year, but against Auburn with no Bo Nix, easy
Without
money.
Bo Nix, they're
Easy
hopeless.
money.
Without Bo Nix, they're hopeless.
Come on.
Yeah, well, I dare you to challenge us.
And Bama just dropped in rankings too. Even more firepower.
Yeah, there's fuel for
Go
Saban.
for it.
Yes, there is one critical factor in this game, and it's the fact that it's being played at Auburn. And exclusively for that reason, I feel like the Tigers can pull it off.
Really?
Yes.
Are you confident in that?
I am.
Did
Caroline tell you to say this?
No.
Did Caroline tell you to say this?
I am very I am confident because college football is chaos.
I'm listening.
College football is
That's true,
chaos.
that's true.
Anything can happen. I think they can pull it out. You know, they've done the kick six. They can do
That's
6
not happening.
kick sixes. That's
Watch
the only
replay.
way they'll
Yeah,
score.
okay.
This will be a ridiculous game. Alabama, on paper, absolutely should win, should demolish. It should be like an Ohio State-Michigan State game. But I think the Tigers can pull it out just for some gut feeling.
You
I've
don't
got
sound
it.
very confident.
I've got
Yeah,
it.
I
I've
don't
got
think
the
you
gut
sound
feeling.
very
I know, but let's stop talking about this one. Let's go to a different game. Let's go to the game. Ohio State, Michigan, the game. Who's winning?
The game, gotta go blue, gotta go Michigan, you guys. I really do think that they're gonna win. With their run game being so strong, they're gonna be able to shorten that game for the Ohio State offense. And yes, the Ohio State defense is very good, I get that. But that's also through the air, and I think that Michigan is gonna be able to capitalize on this run game, especially since Jim Harbaugh has not won in 6 years, ever. He's never
won the game.
He's never won
Yeah.
against Ohio
He's
State.
never won the game.
But I do think this is the year, you guys. As you said, it's chaos. Anything can happen.
You're turning my
Anything can
chaos
happen.
against me.
Gotta go Michigan. Gotta go Michigan.
You're turning my chaos
So go
against me. I
Michigan
don't like
State
that.
and Michigan.
Her point is that Jim Harbaugh will finally win it. No, he won't. No, he won't. It's Jim
They've
Harbaugh.
improved since Michigan State.
No. It's the real OSU is going to beat Michigan. Let's throw that first out there.
Tiny
CJ
T.
Stroud just threw for 6 touchdowns in 1 half. That also is just a reason. If OSU plays 80% of what they did against Michigan State, they will steamroll this Michigan team. Ryan Day will outcoach Jim Harbaugh. He does
Ryan
it all
Day
the
has
time.
always
He will
outcoached Jim
continue to
Harbaugh.
do that.
He always
They
has.
will lose. Michigan will lose. And guess what? Jim Harbaugh, bye.
He's never
You're
gonna get
done.
fired.
You're
He's
done
never
after
gonna
that.
get
fired. Both
No,
are-
he's on the hot seat for like 6 years
No,
because
it's
he
true.
can't beat Ohio State.
That's very
So-
true, but they're both up for a Big Ten championship, and they're both up for a possible
That's true.
CFP
That is
spot.
very true. On paper, this looks like a very well-matched game.
Yeah.
But in practice, Ohio State dominates, and there's no way that Michigan
Have
wins
we
this.
agreed on anything yet?
Oh,
No.
we have not,
Nope.
and we will continue to not to because this is the
He
last
likes my
pick we
picks.
have. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Well, most of them. I can't go with Bama, but Ohio State's going to win.
Nobody
it.
wants
It's
to pick
just
Bama except
on
me.
paper.
I think
Oh,
that's
Ohio
going to
State's
be
got
the best game of the day.
It's
What
going
do
to be
you
a
guys
great
think?
game. Kicking off today.
Yeah, can we also
Kicking off
just look at
today.
the fact that that is the 11 o'clock slot, then the Iron Bowl at 2:30,
And then Bedlam.
Like, come on, that is the greatest day of college football. Right
Exactly.
there.
It's a fantastic slate.
It's rivalry week.
Post-Thanksgiving college football, perfect slate of
Stuff
football.
from all that turkey.
Excited to
Fantastic
watch.
watching. It'll be great football. And speaking
sir.
of Bedlam, that's the third game on the slate.
Here.
We're here in Stillwater, and we're going to talk about Bedlam when we come back.
This is you at OU. What will you learn? How will you excel? What path will you lead? Who will you impact? What will you do at OU?
One day, this will be your office. You'll track the storms, send out the warning, and save lives. One day, you'll teach here too. You'll tell others just like you why you became a meteorologist. But first, you have to become a student. And you'll do that right here at the National Weather Center.
Every day,
Millions of people are connecting
and even though we're overcoming obstacles,
watching each other's backs,
and banding together.
we should still make an effort.
We should still make an effort.
to get to know each other,
On a deeper level. Father,
cosplayer,
mentor.
actor.
It's time we take a step forward
It's time we take a step forward
Come together.
and discover
how accepting our differences
can make us stronger.
Scene 1 of 3, take 1.
I have been 100% into getting vaccinated, and then I asked you, and you hesitated.
Yeah.
I thought we'd be on the same page about this, and we're not.
I feel like even if I were to catch it, my body is strong enough to fight it off.
What if you're one of those cases and you end up in the hospital?
Yeah.
That's what I'm scared of.
If you're wrapping up those Thanksgiving plans and headed to Stillwater this weekend, it's going to be a great day before the game. Pre-game sitting at 62. We are going to quickly cool off, though, as the night progresses. By halftime, we're going to be in the full game. You're definitely going to want a jacket to bundle up because it's going to be very chilly.
Welcome back to Game Day U. We're here in Stillwater again in the shadow of Boone Pickens Stadium, and it's time for Bedlam tonight.
Woo.
Let's get into it. What can we expect from the game?
You guys, I talked about it a little bit, but this Oklahoma State defense is absolutely insane, you guys. Especially, I want to harp on the D-line. They are going to be so good against Caleb Williams, and it's going to be such a good matchup. Even Lincoln Riley at the presser was saying that this is the most experienced defense he has ever seen in his entire life. That's what he said. And I said, oh, okay. But the defense does not make a lot of mistakes. They don't have a lot of gimmies, and that's going to be interesting to see how they match up against freshman quarterback Caleb Williams, which we also talked about earlier, how he's going to utilize those players. So I think really watching out for that D-line and Caleb Williams and how that matches up also against Kennedy Brooks and Eric Gray running game. Are they going to shut them down? They've shut down every other team, and they're the best in the nation. So got to say D-line versus
Gundy is doing good things up here in Stillwater, and the defense.
Second best in the nation.
The defense.
Don't count out Georgia.
Is
behind
solid against
Georgia.
freshman quarterbacks.
Behind Georgia.
Yes.
The defense
But-
is solid.
Exactly. And I'm going to keep talking about defenses
Oh.
because OU's defense is something you need to keep an eye out for. They had a dominant game against Iowa State last weekend, kept Breece Hall from giving up 200 yards against Baylor to only giving up 58 yards. This defensive line is dominant. It will be a great matchup against OSU's defensive line to see who will come out on the end of it. IT, Benito, Perrion, Redmond. If they can have a similar performance from last week where they combined for 5 of the 7 sacks and 6.5 tackles for losses, they're going to come out and they're going to be dominant. It's going to be a defensive game. And can we lay some more big hits, please? Perryon laying the Cronwall hit, as we talk about in hockey, getting Cronwalled. Perryon did that to Brock Purdy. I'd love to see more big hits from the guys.
Back into the middle.
But honestly, this OSU offense, to me, not impressive at all. Spencer Sanders, I think, is an average quarterback. I think the O-line can get beaten up. I think this D-line is fast enough, and the linebackers are fast enough for OU to be able to attack Spencer Sanders and get to him. Jaylen Warren, okay, maybe the fourth, fifth best running back in the Big 12. To me, I just think this is going to be a total defensive battle to the end. That's what you need to keep out is, can this OU defense keep up with OSU's defense and get the stops for this OU offense?
It'll be interesting to look at the stats and look at and kind of compare which defense plays better. Because again, if Caleb Williams gets caught behind the chains, that defense is going to eat him alive.
I think this could be like a 0-0 game.
It's a defensive game. Absolutely.
Maybe 7-7. I don't know.
It could be the most amazing defensive game with
the Big 12 has ever seen.
There's going to be one field goal.
There's one.
That's the only score in this game. It's just defense.
Burkich breaks the burrito curse.
The burrito curse. Breaks the burrito curse to win the game. Quite possible. And that kind of ties into what I'm talking about. A lot of people are saying that, Oklahoma State is ranked higher going into this. Oklahoma, their defense is fantastic, which it is. Yeah. Their offense is solid, which it is. They are on paper the better team and realistically should probably win this game. But my gut is telling me there's this thing in Norman and in the state of Oklahoma called Sooner Magic.
Oh.
And it makes no sense. I will say, as a professional, it makes no sense.
I'm still
but it just
happens.
It just happens. This team does not look solid offensively. They're not scoring. They're relying on the defense. And I'm talking about Oklahoma, not Oklahoma State.
Yes.
They should have lost a lot of games this season. Too many were decided by close margins. Even Iowa State was decided by a close margin. But there's something just about that Sooner spirit, that Sooner magic, the fans, whatever the atmosphere is, even though they're on Oklahoma State turf, there's still going to be fans here. It's just, they're going to pull it out. They always play big in rivalries.
I think it really does rely heavily on Caleb Williams. And if he can get into that rhythm and have that confidence that Lincoln Riley expects him to have, I think that it's going to be a very tight matchup. I think him versus Spencer Sanders is also going to be good to watch too.
Definitely.
Absolutely. This is probably one of the best Bedlam matchups that has existed.
Yeah.
I would say,
honestly,
at least in all of my memory.
I don't think we've had this high ranking of a matchup in a long time, too.
In my memory, absolutely not.
The top 10 teams. It should be exciting.
Oh, it should be there's so many good games.
There's so much good college football this weekend. It's going to be a fantastic game. Now, let's change gears a little bit.
Okay.
Going into the game, we like to call out players. Who are you calling out this week?
Well, Ben, I'm calling out Jaden Hazelwood. I've called him out before, and I called him out for that TCU game when he scored those 3 touchdowns. He can be Caleb Williams' guy if he wants to be. He's been to 3 Bedlams, but he's never been that key star receiver that quarterback has always wanted. Before, it was Trajan Bridges, it was Marvin Mims, it was CeeDee Lamb. Now this is a spot where Jaden Hazelwood, you can step up and you can seize the opportunity and really prove your worth because Caleb trusts you and show him that he can trust you.
It's a good connection.
No, definitely.
Absolutely.
I'd like to see him, when Caleb rolls out of the pocket, I'd love to see him instead of just standing there waiting for the play to happen.
Adjusting?
Adjust.
Yes,
adjust.
I'm with you.
He doesn't really do that. I'd love to see that from Hazelwood.
He does do a good job blocking for the other running backs, other receivers.
Great blocker.
Absolutely.
But you gotta blanket on the word. You gotta improvise. You gotta improvise.
Maybe he'll do it this game. Maybe he'll do it this game. The Sooners are unpredictable.
True. That is true. My call out, I'm going with the man, the Superman. Caleb Williams is my call out because lately, looks like Kryptonite's been getting to you, man. You have not looked the same. And a game like Bedlam against a defense like OSU, yeah, man, you really need to step it up today. You need to play like the Caleb Williams we saw against Texas. If you play like you did against Texas, this is going to be a fun game.
It's going to be a lights out.
OU will be dominating there. This defense is great.
Magic.
And I really hope Lincoln Riley doesn't get too conservative here with the play calling. He's always like that. I'm really starting to question his offensive mind at this point because defenses are stepping up, and this is not a defense that can do it. Oh, easily. I talked about that last week. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Needs to happen.
But the talent is there. We know it. The talent is there. He's the most talented quarterback on that field.
It's execution.
Easily. It's all about executing. He needs to execute, and I think he can.
I think he can.
He's got to capitalize. He has all the weapons, all the tools in front of him in the toolbox. put him to use.
I think he overthinks his options.
He does, because he's
like
young.
Rattler
He's
wouldn't
a
get rid of the
freshman.
ball because he couldn't make the decision. I think Caleb makes the decision and then goes, wait, no. Just make it and trust your gut.
Got to mature. It'll be fine. But y'all were talking about offensive players. I'm going to switch. I'm going to talk about a defensive player who showed out against Iowa State and needs to do it again. Key Lawrence. Yes. Big plays made, allowing for the thick six. He's the one who created that blocked. He created the fumble. He forced it. He'd allowed Jalen Redmond to get that score. And that's the type of play making that needs to happen against Oklahoma State if the Sooners have a chance to win. It's that magic. It's that play that'll just allow them to win. It needs to happen. Key Lawrence needs to keep
He's also
it
the type
up.
of guy that really kind of snuck up on us.
Yes.
Kind of came in towards the end of the season.
I don't know why he wasn't playing earlier.
No.
I said it from day one. That man is one of the best defensive backs on this team.
Absolutely.
You're coming from SEC ball.
Exactly.
Like, come on.
But now,
automatic.
Let's finish it out. Let's talk with some score predictions. But before we get into our predictions, Ben, you got up with a guest. Who'd you talk to?
Yeah, I talked to former OSU Cowboy defensive back Shamil Gary. Awesome guy. And I will send it over to me where he gives his score prediction. Hey everybody, hope you had an awesome Thanksgiving. I'm here in the north end of the end zone with former OSU Cowboy defensive back Shamil Gary. Now, thank you for joining us today. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, you getting excited for the game this Saturday?
Oh yeah, I'm super excited. You know, it feels weird being here right now, but you know, I'm looking forward towards a good game.
Definitely. And you mentioned that you kind of bounced around the NFL a little bit, played for a couple teams for a little bit of time there. What was that like, being in the NFL and being in that kind of environment?
Right. You know, I know there's a lot of athletes that want to go to the NFL, but they don't tell you, you know, the NFL stands for not for long, you know, so it's a cutthroat business, you know, but it was a good opportunity. Got a chance to, you know, play with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and, you know, go to different teams. So
definitely. Yeah. Now changing to a different environment, one that you know very well, Bedlam, OSU OU. Yeah. What is that like, being a player in those kind of games and that kind of atmosphere?
I mean, it's nothing like it. You know, it's a rivalry, regardless of the record. But this year, you have what's the standings for this year?
I think it's OSU is 7 and OU is 10.
Okay, so this is like back when Brandon Whedon and back my senior year as well. You know, highly ranked teams. So it should be a good game. And you know, both schools have good defenses. So we'll see.
Definitely. And then also, I know we mentioned you had kind of a little podcast, YouTube thing going. Anything you kind of want to mention about that?
No, don't worry about the podcast. But you know, what I do for a living, I go around the country and I speak to organizations, colleges, students, and you may see me someday speaking to a school near you.
Definitely. Hopefully we do. Now, gotta ask you, last thing, score prediction. Who do you think's gonna win and what's the score?
I mean, you already know who I think is gonna win. But let's see. Let's go. We got two good defenses, but it's still the Big 12. I'm just hoping it's not 60-50 type of game.
Definitely.
So I'm thinking 28-24 OSU.
Just want to give another thanks to Shamil Gary for joining us today on the show. His score prediction, I don't know if I'm a huge fan of it, but obviously being an OSU Cowboy, not surprised by it. Shannon, Will, back to you guys.
It's Bedlam time. It's time for our score predictions, and Ben is already in the Cowboy spirit. We'll see how that translates to Shannon. What's your pick?
I'm picking Oklahoma State 28-21. I've been riding this train since day one, the first show. OU's offense has no room for mistakes against this OSU defense, who doesn't make mistakes. It's got to be the Pokes.
Ben, I think I can guess what your pick is.
Yes, sir. You know, the Sooners are great. Got to root for them, but you know what? 21-18, Oklahoma State. Give me the Pokes. Shout out to the cowboy hat. So go with the Pokes.
Well, I'm going to root for Sooner Magic. I'm going 14-10 OU. It's going to be a defensive battle. It's going to be low scoring, but it's going to be fantastic football. And that's all we have today. Yes. And that's all the time we have. From Stillwater, for Shannon Earhart and Ben Thomas, I'm Will Blessing.
Jordan knows he